This is a CBS 7 First Alert Weather Day. Now, an update from the First Alert Weather Center.
Well, we are looking at, again, more thunderstorms in our forecast as we move in towards the evening hours, and the threat of an isolated severe thunderstorm is there. That's why it's a CBS 7 First Alert Weather Day. Here's a live look on our iCam in Odessa. This is looking west towards that thunderhead we had earlier that really made for a visible sight, being backlit by the sun, the setting sun. Well, that has dissipated. Now we're on the watch for more thunderstorms that are starting to move into the west. We had 37/100ths of an inch of rain in the Pecos area this afternoon from some of those thunder showers, and starting to pick up 1/3 of an inch plus around the Carlsbad area as thunderstorms are starting to move in. Here's a look at the live radar. A broken line of storms across portions of southeast Texas and starting to develop a little bit across the Davis Mountains right now. Zooming in on southeast of Mexico, numerous strong thunderstorms capable of producing up to nickel-sized hail and wind gusts up to 55 miles an hour, lining up from around Loving back up towards the Maljamar area, west of Eunice and Jal and Hobbs for the time being. But these storms are moving off to the east to east-northeast at about 10 to 15 miles an hour, looking further off to the south. Isolated showers, thunder showers starting to develop here across the Davis Mountains at the present time. And again, it's a wider view of storms that is starting to move in with an upper level disturbance across the area. Possibility for an isolated strong to severe thunderstorm overnight tonight. Biggest threats are going to be damaging winds, possibility of some large hail, but flooding though as the ground is saturated across the area. Here's the timing on things, expecting the storms to start to move in across parts of the Permian Basin after about 11 o'clock midnight. They start to wind up a little bit, then move off to the east rather quickly through the early morning hours. And again, heavy rain starting to roll across the Midland Odessa area by about 2:30 to 3:30 in the morning, clearing Big Spring by 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then everything will clear out. So make sure you have that CBS 7 First Alert Weather app downloaded to your Android phone, your iPhone, your tablets, so that way you can stay in the know and get those alerts all night from the CBS 7 First Alert team of meteorologists.
Thanks, Tom. We're tracking crime now. Texas DPS announced that 7 people were arrested in a joint human trafficking operation. Those 7 people are listed here. 5 of them are from Midland, Odessa, and each of the suspects have been charged with solicitation of prostitution and booked into either the Midland or Ector County jails. DPS also reports that during this operation, they were able to recover 14 human trafficking victims who came from all over the country, including here in our area. The operation involved resources from several agencies, including Midland and Odessa law enforcement. In this morning, ECISD placed elementary schools on lockdown for an hour. Last night, the FBI received a voicemail from a man in Odessa threatening to shoot elementary students unless he was helped. This morning, when ECISD was informed about the threat, all elementary schools were placed on a secure hold. The secure status was lifted when local law enforcement agencies and ECISD officers located a person of interest and determined the threat to no longer be credible. ECISD messaged parents this afternoon stating they are grateful the law enforcement community working together to keep citizens safe. And we have new details. Officials have released on into a large fire that erupted in Odessa back on Friday, October 20th. Here's a look at the fire that happened on the 2500 block of West Murphy just after midnight. City officials say that 58-year-old William Arnett is accused of lighting this fire. Court documents say that Arnett had been fired from his job for being intoxicated at work. During this, he got into a fight with another employee where he set a punching bag on fire. The city also says that Arnett left, but later came back and set trash and a pile of tires on fire. An employee says he tried putting the fire out, but it got too big and called 911. Police were able to find Arnett about an hour later, and he was arrested for DWI and arson of a building. He was booked into the Ector County Jail. And in continuing coverage, the Midland City Council voted 5-2 in favor of a preliminary plan to build a new YMCA in Midland. Over 20 people spoke on this topic, and most of them were for it, but there was also people against it. Midlanders stepped in front of the podium to ask the council about the expansion of the YMCA in Midland. Residents that live near that area say that it's a concern to them because of the traffic it could cause, as well as noise pollution. However, there were many other people who disagreed and said this is something that will benefit the community for years to come.
And we're real excited about this property and the opportunities that it brings. And it also gives us the opportunity to work with the city to really address the infrastructure and some of the traffic challenges that have been brought forward.
Council members Dan Corrales and Amy Stretcher-Burks voted against this. They say that this project could cause more issues rather than solving them. The YMCA board says that if all goes well, the project could begin construction next year and be complete by 2025. And each election brings a different level of voter turnout. For this upcoming election, buzz around school bonds may boost numbers, which are typically lower during non-presidential elections. This time around, the big ballot items are MIC and ECISD school bonds, plus state constitutional amendments. Those elections and midterms rarely gets as much attention as a presidential election. For example, voter turnout was about 20% less in 2022 compared to 2020 in Midland and Ector counties.
And we think that our local elections are equally as important as a presidential election year, because the things that are on the ballot this November have a day-to-day impact on every resident in the Permian Basin.
Last year, 30% of Ector County registered voters and 41% of Midland County voters cast their ballot. Bentley says it's important that a majority of potential voters make decisions for their community, not a minority. And early voting has begun, and 2 weeks from today, November 7th, is Election Day. Included in the bond is a proposition for a brand new Transition Learning Center in ECISD. The Transition Learning Center is a part of ECISD that teaches students who graduated from Permian or OHS with a disability tools to use in their daily life. And what these students learn in the classroom is critical for them to succeed after leaving, since they'll have to use what they learn in the classroom out in the real world.
This is our last shot with our students before they hit the real world. And so we go real hard at teaching them daily everything they're going to need, that according to their ability, that's going to get them prepared for real life.
The Transition Learning Center is on the ECISD bond, and if the bond passes, the Transition Learning Center is going to be getting a brand new building for their students. And the City of Midland made an official proclamation this morning recognizing the week of November 6th through the 10th as Municipal Court Week. Councilman Scott Dufford presented the proclamation to the Honorable TA Tim Meek, who was the presiding judge over the Midland Municipal Court. The proclamation is intended to recognize the critical role the municipal court plays in public safety, traffic safety, and quality of life in the city, as well as the court's role in promoting public confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the legal system. And across the nation, Donald Trump's former attorney and fixer Michael Cohen took the stand today in the former president's civil fraud trial in New York. He told the court he and former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg manipulated the company's financial documents. Cohen said Trump would tell them what he wanted his net worth to be. Then they would reverse engineer asset evaluations to achieve that number. The $250 million trial centers around whether Trump's company inflated asset values to get better terms on commercial loans.
This is not about Donald Trump versus Michael Cohen or Michael Cohen versus Donald Trump. This is about accountability, plain and simple, and we leave it up to Judge Engoron in order to make all the determinations on that.
Cohen also told the court he lied to Congress in 2017 when he claimed he only spoke to Trump about the Trump Tower Moscow project 3 times. He said it was actually 10 times, and he lied about it because Trump asked him to. Cohen's testimony reportedly marked the first time in 5 years Cohen and Trump have been in the same room. And Israel says it has launched more than 400 airstrikes on Hamas targets in Gaza over the past day. And an 85-year-old Israeli hostage released from her Hamas captors is speaking out. Tina Kraus reports from Tel Aviv.
The day after Hamas freed 85-year-old Yocheved Lifshitz, she described going through hell for more than 2 weeks as a hostage in Gaza.
My mom is saying that she was taken on the back of a motorbike. She was hit by sticks until they reach the tunnels.
Lifshit's husband is believed to be among the more than 200 hostages Hamas is still holding. The Israel Defense Forces dropped leaflets in Gaza, offering cash rewards to Palestinians who give information on their whereabouts. Hundreds of thousands of Israeli troops are positioned near the Gaza border for an expected ground assault. On Tuesday evening, President Biden was asked if the U.S. is pressing Israel to delay its invasion.
Israelis are making their own decisions.
Inside Gaza, the Palestinian death toll is rising as Israel intensifies its airstrikes.
But the grievances of the Palestinian people cannot justify the appalling attacks by Hamas, and those appalling attacks cannot justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people.
The UN Secretary General is calling for a ceasefire, but the Biden administration says right now a ceasefire only benefits Hamas.
This is war. It is combat. It is bloody. It is ugly, and it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt.
Israel Defense Forces say Hamas is increasing its rocket attacks on Israel while still trying to cross back into the Jewish state. Tina Kraus, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
On Tuesday, 8 trucks carrying food, water, and medicine were allowed across the border, the first in 24 hours. But observers say it's not nearly enough to meet demand and ease a growing humanitarian crisis. And in your oil and gas news, Chevron says it will buy Hess Corp for $53 billion. In a conference call, Chevron CEO said that the deal will allow the company to gain access to a major oil field in the South American country of Guyana. It's the second major oil deal and announced this month after ExxonMobil said it would acquire Pioneer Natural Resources. Now for a look at today's top headlines shown here in real time with real viewers on CBS7.com. See all of these stories and more by downloading our app or visiting our website at CBS7.com. And still ahead, an update on the off-duty pilot that attempted to shut off a plane's engine mid-flight. We'll have that up next. We now have an update to a story we covered yesterday. A terrifying incident aboard a passenger jet. An off-duty pilot hitching a ride in the cockpit allegedly tried to shut off the engines mid-flight on Sunday. 44-year-old Joseph David Emerson is charged with 83 counts, each of attempted murder and reckless endangerment, as well as endangering an aircraft. As Chris Van Cleve reports, he is due in court later today.
We want law enforcement as soon as we get on the ground and park.
A cockpit crisis at 31,000 feet Sunday night on Alaska Airlines Flight 2059.
The We've got the guy that tried to shut the engines down out of the cockpit.
Police say the guy was 44-year-old Joseph Emerson, an off-duty Alaska captain riding in the cockpit jump seat. About 30 minutes after taking off from Everett, Washington, heading to San Francisco, Emerson allegedly attempted to pull these red emergency handles, which cut off fuel to the engines and activate a fire suppression system.
I've flown a lot in my life, and I had been scared once before, and yesterday was the second time.
Passenger Paul Stephen was among the 84 aboard.
The only thing they told us when it was happening was it was a medical disturbance. And then the comment when we were getting close to landing was there was a cockpit disturbance.
Pilots made an emergency landing in Portland. No one was injured.
It's very concerning. This is such an extremely rare situation.
Airline captain Laura Einsettler.
How easy would it be for a jump seat passenger to access some of the flight controls?
Especially the larger aircraft have most of our engine controls on the center console. Basically, the jump seaters and all pilots can access that area.
Law enforcement sources say there does not appear to be a connection to terrorism. Emerson is a married father of 2 from the Bay Area, seen in Facebook photos visiting sick children in the hospital. A motive so far is unknown.
Chris Van Cleve, CBS News.
Well, we're still on the weather watch tonight as thunderstorms are starting to move in across southeast New Mexico and the Davis Mountains, headed towards the Trans-Pecos and the Permian Basin. We'll update on all that is next.
This is a CBS 7 First Alert Weather Day. Now, an update from Chief Meteorologist Tom Tieferteller.
Well, let's look outside again on our live iCam in Odessa. We're waiting for the showers and thunderstorms to roll in. That's going to happen into the early morning hours on Wednesday as everything is still well off to the west. We can see it on the radar now. Live radar is showing you that the scattered showers and thunder showers lining up from southeastern Eddy County up towards Maljamar near the Lovington area, west of Hobbs, Eunice and Jal is what I'm trying to say there. That is still off to the west, but it is moving off to the east at about 15 miles an hour. Nickel signs hail, wind gusts up to 55 miles an hour, and heavy rainfall that could cause quick flooding of low-lying areas. Other scattered thunderstorms trying to develop now from near Marfa up across the Davis Mountains. One just passed through the Fort Davis area there, but nothing looking too strong as of yet. But again, the ground is saturated and we are looking at heavy rain, a possibility. Had a little thunder shower activity near the Sanderson area, moving off to the north and northeast. All being kicked off by a big disturbance, big dip in the southern jet, and that is going to move right across portions of West Texas here over the next 12 hours or so. And as it does, it's going to swing a cold front through with these showers and thunderstorms moving across with that front overnight tonight into the early morning hours on Wednesday. The remnants of Norman that visited us yesterday with the heavy rain, well, that is moving over towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area at the present time. As temperatures across the state today, not all that bad. We warmed up in a few spots into the 80s, even 90 around Del Rio, 92 in Laredo and Brownsville. Now, the West Texas Futurecast showing the scattered showers, thunderstorms starting to form up to a line after midnight and then moving into the Permian Basin between 2:30 and 3:30 across the Midland-Odessa area. About 4 o'clock to 5 around Big Spring before everything exits the area after 7 o'clock in the morning. And we're going to be left with a pretty quiet day across the area as that Pacific cool front rolls in. Rainfall amounts, well, we could be looking at upwards to an inch in some spots across the Permian Basin, especially the eastern Permian Basin. Ground is saturated. There's been upwards to 4 inches of rain reported in and around the city of Midland. So any more rain is going to cause flooding problems rather quickly, and that could happen towards the early morning hours. So the flash flooding outlook, again, for the overnight hours, scattered areas of flooding in this yellow here from parts of the Permian Basin into the Trans-Pecos down towards the Big Bend. Rest of tonight, thunderstorms in the forecast with heavy rain possibilities. Watching out for some flooding first thing in the morning before things clear out. And tomorrow about 76 degrees with clearing skies as these storms will move through. And then pretty quiet weather on the way just in time for the weekend as temperatures stay a little unseasonably warm there into the low 80s. But a big change is on the way. Arctic cold front rolls in late in the weekend on Sunday. That's going to bring Arctic chill to our forecast for the first time this fall season. Highs only into the 40s coming up on Monday. Nighttime lows down into the 30s. So it's going to make for a chilly Halloween.
Your consumer news, Congress is taking another look at how to stop robocalls. The Senate Commerce and Communications Subcommittee heard from business and technology leaders about strategies to prevent the unwanted and illegal phone calls and texts. Robocall blocking app YouMail says U.S. consumers received more than 4 billion robocalls last month and 2 billion unwanted scam and telemarketing calls. The witnesses want the Justice Department to more aggressively enforce existing laws against companies responsible for these calls. Margot Saunders is a senior attorney at the National Consumer Law Center. She says the tools exist to take action.
In a civilization in which we can take pictures of Saturn's rings, the failure to solve this problem is not a matter of technology. It's a question of whether the people in power actually want to solve it.
Experts say robocall companies will find ways to evade new laws, and government agencies need to react quickly. The Federal Communication Commission says it is using artificial intelligence to better fight robocalls. And still ahead, Starbucks lineup of holiday cups has been unveiled ahead of the holiday season. Well, it's not even Halloween yet, but Starbucks is getting a jump on the holiday season. The coffee chain has officially unveiled this year's lineup of its popular holiday cups. Shiny and iridescent, Starbucks says the cold cups and tumblers were inspired by Winter Wonderland and Calm Winter's Night. The lineup also includes the color-changing cup set, which change color when a hot drink is poured into them. That's kind of fancy. All right, Tom, I think I might have to stop by Starbucks and get these once it gets a little cooler.
Yeah, I like the mug and I like the first two they showed. They showed two different shades of blue that looked very neat.
I know, and it seems like this might be perfect for next week's weather. We're getting.
That's exactly right. We got storms tonight starting to bubble up southeast New Mexico into the mountain areas. That'll be moving across overnight tonight. And what you're talking about, Alexander, a little blue on the extended forecast here with an Arctic cold front next week.
Well, thanks for watching CBS 7 First Alert News. I'm Emma CW.